Welcome to another installment of Monday Q&A. I hope you've all had a fantastic weekend. To everybody who submitted a question for this week, as always, thank you very much. If you want to submit a question and have me answer it on next week's video, put it in the comments section below. I want to give a massive shout out to all my amazing patrons who support me over on Patreon. They keep the lights on, they keep my cats fed, they keep the content flowing. If you would like to sign up, just check the video description. There are also a whole bunch of other ways you can support what I'm doing here on the channel and get yourself some free stuff as well. Just check the video description like I mentioned earlier. Otherwise, let's get into these questions for this week. This one comes from friend of the channel and all-around legend, Roy. I'm going to talk about Roy a little bit later in this video, but he asked why you know P90. I actually have a couple of guitars with P90s on them. You can probably see just there, there's a Les Paul Custom that has some TV Jones P90s in it that I've used on a few demo videos. And I have a Hamer Special that I actually gigged for a few years, and I love that guitar. It's got this really unique grunt out of it. I think it's just got some Seymour Duncan P90s in it. It's a real cool point of difference, and P90s to me just sound rock and roll. There's no way around it. Like, you just put them through anything and they have a unique texture and character to them that's not your typical Strat or Tele single coil. It doesn't sound like a humbucker. It just sounds like a P90. And if you don't like the way that sounds, I think you actually don't like the way electric guitar sounds, because P90s are pretty addictive, and I think everybody should own at least one guitar with P90s in it. I actually did a video with a Harley Benton kind of Les Paul Jr. copy that has a single dog ear P90 in it. You can check that video out, and that one is just total Leslie West territory. But I'll let you hear my Hamer very quickly, Roy. Software plugins with a real power amp and cabs. I'm going to assume that if you're playing through the software plugin, you've probably got an audio interface and you've probably got some studio monitors, and that's how you're experiencing the plugins. Most audio interfaces will probably have line outs separate from the monitor controllers. So you can take those line outs, you can route your plugin to the line out, and you can route that physically to your power amp and cab. I actually know a few people who run their home rigs like that. It is a great way to get all the flexibility and kind of price point features out of plugins, because, you know, $100 for an amp plugin versus a few $1,000s for a hardware modeler. If you've already got a computer, it's a pretty good value proposition. But then if you're running it through a real power amp and cab, you can get that amp in the room sensation, the amp in the roop. Who knows what that means? The amp in the room sensation, like I was saying before. It's a pretty cool way to run it, especially if you've already got a power amp rig, or you've got a rack, and let's say you wanted to run something like Reaxis by Mercurial Audio, and you wanted to load up some Sound Toys plugins on it and just basically build a virtual 80s style fridge rack in there. You could do that and run it through your power amp. I think it's a great way to use plugins, and one that is probably a little overlooked. I mentioned last week that the 2290, the Eventide H3000, and the PCM70 are probably my three top tier rack units. How would I go about recreating those in the Axe-Fx? Well, you can go and grab my free blocks library and get a bunch of those sounds in there. There are blocks that are matched to the H3000. The factory delay block has a 2290 type in there, and now the multi-tap delay block has a PCM70 circular and pan delay type in there that have been matched to the hardware, which I think is pretty amazing and pretty awesome. Something like the Axe effects, to me, it really kind of builds on the idea of the Eventide H3000, in my opinion. You know, what Eventide were able to achieve in the early 90s with that unit as a multi-effects processor, in my opinion, kind of evolved into the Eclipse, and then the original Axe effects just kind of picked up where the Eclipse left off, added amp modeling, a whole bunch of other fun stuff, and now with the 3, you've got something that is probably more powerful than a rack full of those units, with the ability to have great amp modeling in there. So it's pretty awesome. If you have any other questions, jump on the Discord server and I can sort you out with some recommendations. Are there any clips playing my 70s Strat with the 88 MP1? Indeed there is. There's an entire video devoted to it if you want to go and check it out. Something called like 80s cleans with the 88 MP1, where I'm just using the MP1 direct to an interface to get some of those kind of direct to console tones with chorus. I was really impressed with how good that sounded, because there's the solid state clean, which has a compressor. You've got the stereo chorus in there. You know, I added some reverb and pitch detune in post, and the MP1 as a direct to console box for that kind of clean, funky thing. You know, if you're doing like In Excess or The Fix or Nile Rodgers, or you want that just sparkly Richard Marx clean sound, can do it really, really well, especially with a Strat on the 2 and 4 positions. The T-Rex Binson Echo Rec recreation. I saw it. I cannot wait to see some more videos and hear that thing in action. I would love to try one. It seems like a pretty novel concept. Like T-Rex have some tape style delays already, and you know, the Echo Rec really seems to have had a bloom in renewed popularity. I think people realized how many classic recordings it was on. Of course, it was Hank Marvin's delay of choice, and Hank Marvin arguably is one of, if not the most influential electric guitar players of all time. Like, Hank pretty much influenced all my favorite players from the 60s and 70s to pick up a guitar. And Hank actually lives in Perth now, which is pretty spun out. My dad made a guitar neck for him years and years ago. It's a story for another time, but anytime I think of the Echo Rec, I think of Hank and the Shadows. What an absolute legend. Nevertheless, I would love to try that T-Rex Binson, because that's kind of the multi-head delay that's very much in vogue at the moment. I think the Strymon Volante is going for the Binson thing, and you know, the Boss DD200 has a multi-head echo mode that is probably based on their Space Echo, but it can kind of get Binson-y in there. So very keen to see some more clips and like hear it on other instrument sources as well, like keyboards and on drums. I had a T-Rex replica a little while ago, and I still remember when that came out, and that was one of the first digital delay pedals where people were like, oh, it sounds warm and analog, and how are they doing it? And now everybody kind of knows how they did it. Pretty cool pedal. I would like to try one of those again. I can't remember why I sold it. It might have been during one of my self-loathing gear purges where I just went, I've got too much stuff, I need to get rid of all of it, which is kind of something that I'm going through at the moment with a lot of pedals. So more on that at a later date though. This one comes from friend of the channel, Neil. Neil wanted to know what the Iron Maidens were using for their guitar rigs. We opened for them not last week, the week before, and I was pretty surprised because Courtney actually wasn't playing with them. As I understand it, Courtney was filling in for another band on the Monsters of Rock cruise, and they had Yimina filling in with them. It was her first gig. It was pretty fantastic. She did a great job. She was playing through a 5150, I think just a backline amp, and then Nikki had a Kemper. So I put a photo up on my Facebook page and my Instagram of just my rig, like top down, where it was PRS, shoes, and the little FM3 and EV2. A few eagle-eyed people noticed that there was a Kemper foot controller there. So yeah, Nikki was just using a powered Kemper with the foot switch. It sounded great. I don't know what profiles they were using, but you know, for the Iron Maiden thing, I'm guessing some kind of Marshall style thing. They were such a good live band. The drummer in particular, playing drums and singing all the high harmonies was pretty incredible, and they were super cool as well. They let us use their entire drum kit, which you don't normally get when you're doing a support. Normally it's like, yeah, these are our drums, and even though we're hiring them and it's none of our stuff, you guys set up your kit in front of the stage and, you know, have 3 people in a line on a tiny stage. That's what people want to see when they see a support band. So yeah, that was like infinitely cool to let us do that. And I've put up the drum cam of that performance on my Patreon if anyone wants to watch it. Following on from last week's question about one guitar being able to do it all, what about one amp or one modeler? What would I go with? Super easy question on the modeler choice. I just go with Fractal. That's what I'm already using. That's the one modeler that I use pretty much for everything, whether it's noodling at home or playing live or recording. So easy one, FM3 or FM9, either of those hits the sweet spot when it comes to portability as well. Been using the FM3 a lot, mostly because I've got a small flight case for it, and that makes it really, really easy to just grab and go. But I think in terms of like power to portability and flexibility, the FM9 is probably my favorite unit in the lineup. Hard to go wrong there. For my live sound, I just use the model of the Boogie Mark IV in there. So if I was going to go with one amp, I would probably just go with my Boogie Mark IV, because you can do the pristine cleans, you can get kind of driven bluesy stuff out of it. The second channel is so underrated and can get like vaguely Marshall voxy kind of crunch out of it and some chime. And then you've got the absolute giant chungus on the lead channel. It's that sound you either love or, well, maybe love or loathe isn't the right way. You either absolutely love that sound so much that you can't live without it, or you just really like it. That's probably the way to go. Otherwise, you know, a Marshall DSL, I gigged for years and had a pretty good time with that one. So yeah, it would either be Fractal with the Boogie model or just the real Boogie with maybe like an Eventide H90. That would pretty much do everything I would need. To round things out, what do I think is the best guitar PRS make? I think this is not only the best guitar PRS make, this is probably the best production guitar that money can buy, in my opinion, the mighty DGT. And this guitar I bought from friend of the channel, Roy, absolute legend. Been looking for one of these for a while. It's actually funny, I borrowed a DGT a while ago from my buddy Ray, and now I've bought a DGT from my other buddy Roy. This is just one of the finest instruments that I have played. I felt like that with the original DGT that I tried. This is a 2020 model. It's got moons on the fretboard. It's got this wonderful top. Look at that. It's a beautiful thing. Kind of teardrop tobacco burst finish. The pickups sound phenomenal. I don't know what they're doing in there, but it's one of the few guitars that I found where the tapped humbuckers sound as good as the normal humbuckers in there. You can get kind of vintage Strat tones, vintage Telly tones, vintage Les Paul tones out of it, and you can make it sound absolutely massive. I've put up some clips with this already, but I'll put some at the end of the video. The thing that I like about this as well is it is so loud and resonant, like just ridiculous. It's almost like playing an acoustic guitar, and I've been annoying my wife and annoying the cats by just walking around with a strap on this thing and just kind of noodling around the house. I can't stop playing this guitar. It's so awesome. And a big shout out to my buddy Roy for selling me this guitar. It came all the way from Norway, which is pretty amazing. And yeah, Roy, you made my dreams come true. Thank you so much. It's so cool to finally own one of these. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like, what do you think is the best guitar money can buy at the moment? Let me know any other questions for next week's Q&A, and I'll leave you with some giant chungus on the DGT. You don't normally associate these with these sort of tones, but I think they do them pretty well. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time.